Speed Weeks begin here in the NNSCRA Duracell Cup Series 5th season, and we are here at the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Good afternoon, everybody, or an early good evening for those of you here on the East Coast as we get set to at least partially set the field for this year's Great American Race. Pole day qualifying here today. It's going to involve the drivers that will be taking part in the Daytona 500 next week. So, of course, driver number one of the three driver teams during the course of this rather unusual but quite interesting concept in the 5th season of Duracell Cup Series competition. No surprise that all of the teams have designated all four of our defending Daytona 500 winners to take part in this year's Great American Race, trying to become the first multi-time winner of the big race at the start of the season. And let's kind of break it down of what these drivers are going to be doing here today in this 27-car field. So you've basically got two agendas. You've got one main focus, and if that doesn't work out, then you kind of transition to Plan B. So Plan A for these drivers is going to be, and this is taking a little bit of a concept away from AG, the channel. If you aren't subscribed to him, check him out, of course, formerly known as Napa Fan. Got this idea off of him and applied it here for this Daytona 500 qualifying weekend. We're going to be ended up having that drivers are going to be taking part in this event here today, but the main goal is the same as what it's been in the past, and that is to set the two fastest lap times. Fastest lap time, get you the pole position. Second fastest lap time, get you the outside of the front row. We're not going to really know until towards the end of the race who the pole sitter and the front row drivers are going to be until we check the fastest lap set in what's going to be a 20-lap qualifying event. Now, if you end up getting the two fastest qualifying lap times during the course of this race, which more than likely we're going to see take place of drivers towards the rear of the field, dropping back there, getting the biggest toe, and setting down the fast lap times, it's going to play strategy because you kind of have to weigh two options. You could either drop to the rear of the field, try and get the pole lap, or the outside of the front row lap. If you don't succeed in doing that, though, then everybody else, what do they have to play for? Well, if you win this race and you did not have the two fastest laps of this event, you're going to be starting on the pole position for your respective duels this Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you're kind of either racing for the best starting track position possible in the Great American Race, or you're racing for the best starting track position possible in your respective duels. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out here in this 20-lap event. Also going to give these drivers a little bit of an idea of what they're able to do, because 20 laps is the same amount of laps that they're going to have in the respective duels this Wednesday night. So they can kind of plan out a little bit of strategy here today and apply it in a few days' time. But let's take a look at our starting lineup for today's race. Or I should say well, it is a race. It's a qualifying event, but it is still a race, so to speak. So Dylan Poteet is going to line up on the pole position, 4-time Duracell Cup Series winner. Of course, a 2-time winner last season in charter races as a non-charter driver, and he'll be alongside of the 77. That is Patrick Smith coming back for a second season. He'll be in the second entry out of Auto Junction Racing. Keith Batson, who was a multi-time winner last season, a 2-time winner, and was in the playoffs. He is going to be rolling off from 3rd place, and he'll be alongside of one of 4 former Daytona 500 winners in Carter Friesen. Friesen, of course, winning the inaugural Daytona 500 back in Season 1. Kind of hard to get us a very good camera angle here of these drivers, which is a bit unfortunate. So it's going to be Phil Parker returning back to Lake Effect Autosport. He's going to be in the number 74 once again, still looking for his first career win in that Ford Mustang, and he's going to be alongside of the 21. That is going to be, I believe it's Pedro Lucas. Yes, it is Pedro Lucas for the team of No Limits Racing, which downsized from a 2-car team last season to now a single-car effort. Mentioned about former Daytona 500 winners in the field. There's another one, Trey Wright, in the number 38, who is the defending Daytona 500 winner from last season's Season 4, and he's going to be alongside of Austin LaPlante in the 48. LaPlante, a 4-time winner in the Duracell Cup Series as well, and driving there for Northeast Motorsports. Tim Walsh going to make his debut in the Duracell Cup Series. Of course, we recognize him from the Hershey's Cup Series and the very, very distant Snickers Cup Series. He's going to be driving the number 15 car along with Benjamin Miles and Danny Wells. Kyle Matthews in the S3 Motorsports second entry, the 09, will be rolling off from the 10th position. Behind them, you're going to find Ryan Butcher, who of course has all the momentum coming to this weekend after winning the Clash last week at Bowman Gray, and he'll be alongside of a guy that kind of burst onto the scene, Michael Wayne Robinson, a two-time winner as a rookie last season when he drove in a non-charter effort for KEB Racing Enterprises. He returns to that team now full-time. Keep an eye on this guy. He might catch fire during the course of this season. James Qualls, we saw him in the Clash, the number 17 out of Joanna Atwood Motorsports, now over with Ford Mustangs. That's the third manufacturer that they've been with in the 5 seasons, and he'll be alongside of Nick Gunther and Gunther Motorsports, as he'll be piloting the number 55 Square D Chevrolet here for the Great American Race. Let's go to another Daytona 500 winner, Season 2. It was Season 3 rather. It was Cole Baker who went to victory lane, and he will be piloting his Toyota Camry alongside of Andrew Lemke in the number 12, one of the entries now out of Evans Gardner Motorsports. Going to be piloting that machine with a number of other drivers that are going to be making their debuts. Lemke making his debut in the Duracell Cup Series here this season. Benny Watson, who's been maybe one of the most consistent drivers during the course of his entire Duracell Cup Series career, but he's just not been able to get himself high enough there in the playoffs to be able to battle for the championship. He'll be in the Pigeon Racing entry, the number 32, alongside of Jack Mitchell. Jack Mitchell's been on a bit of a winless streak as of late, and he'll see if he can get his Adrenaline Motorsports Chevrolet to victory lane during the Daytona 500. Shadow Cult Motorsports, the new team with Levi McIntyre breaking off from Blue Oval Automotive, now in a single car effort. Levi McIntyre going to be rolling off alongside of the Carvana Chevrolet. That is Cody Lamas. Lamas, of course, moving over with Michael Norman and Trent Dunham. We saw Cody Lamas in the Clash last week. Dylan Young, the very familiar orange and white Hooters Ford Mustang. Of course, Dylan Young, one of several Young Motorsports cars that made the playoffs last season, and Dylan Young, a 6-time winner, tied for third on the all-times wins list coming into this season. He'll be alongside of the second entry out of Joanna Atwood Motorsports. That's the Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford Mustang, driven by Joshua Osborne, now in a full-time charter ride. We saw him driving the number 56 in a non-charter effort, the Dodge, last season in Duracell Cup Series competition. Jesse Turner, 6-time winner in the Duracell Cup Series, was a playoff contender last year. He's going to be starting pretty deep in the field in his Air Force Ford Mustang. He'll be alongside of Charles Sanford in the Coke Vanilla Chevrolet out of S3 Motorsports. Amanda Evans in the Heritage Distilling Chevrolet. I believe I'm saying the wrong, Heritage Distilling Company Chevrolet, I should say, out of Evans Gardner Motorsports. We ended up seeing Amanda take a victory in non-charter competition. I believe it was back at the Indianapolis Road Course last year, and now she's in a full-time entry here this season, alongside another former Daytona 500 winner in Carson Gum. Carson Gum winning this event back in Season 2, and the only driver to now have a championship and a Daytona 500 victory under his belt. Of course, coming into this season, the defending Duracell Cup Series champion. And bringing up the rear is going to be the Toyota Camry of Matt Haas out of Haas Racing, and that's the 27 drivers that are going to try and qualify for this season's Great American Race. It's time to go down trackside. Let's get those most famous words in motorsports. Let's get these guys set to take the green flag for the first time here this season at the World Center of Racing and figure out who's going to be on the front row for this season's Great American Race.
Drivers, start your engines!
As the command is given, again, 20 laps of racing here today, and watch these guys in testing. Keep an eye on middle of the field towards the back of the pack because not necessarily like the Clash, but there are no points on the line here. If you wreck out, you're still going to have a chance to get a good qualifying effort in the duels. If you wreck out of the duels, you're still going to take the green flag for the Daytona 500, but these guys were going 3 wide and on occasion 4 wide, and here's the strange thing. Daytona is a lot more narrow than Talladega. We see them go 4 wide at Talladega. It's okay. You know, you kind of are willing to let them race it out, but here at Daytona, 4 wide is not necessarily looked on with a smile on your face, and they made it work several times. 4 wide, and then would settle it out to 3 wide. So we will see who's going to be willing to force the issue here. Again, the duels will be setting the rest of the Daytona 500 on Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys will join us for that. As here today, we get ready to determine the front row for the Daytona 500. Now, the guys that qualify on the front row for the Daytona 500, they're going to have an agenda when they get to the duels on Wednesday night, because they've got to keep their car in one piece. If you end up going to a backup car for the 500, you forfeit your front row starting position. And that puts a lot of pressure then potentially on the drivers that end up winning the duels to be able to take that checkered flag, because if you're in the first duel, you could be the interim Daytona 500 pole sitter in a couple of weeks' time. So, a lot to play for, a lot of strategy takes place here at Daytona, and that's what we love Speed Weeks for. And we're getting ready to write the first chapter in setting the starting grid for this season's Great American Race. Dylan Poteet Chevrolet, Patrick Smith's Toyota Camry. Bring us down. And let's race at Daytona. Let's roll in the Duracell Cup Series. Down the back straightaway, Dylan Poteet pulls out to a pretty commanding lead, which is not a good thing at a super speedway. Look at the Fords hooking up on the inside line. Phil Parker, Pedro Lucas, they're going to move down, pick up Trey Wright. And Phil Parker, with a nice run there through 3 and 4, going to duck to the inside of Dylan Poteet. And it looks like that Air Force Ford Mustang might be the one to lead the first lap of this race. And indeed he will, as we are 3 wide across the line for second place. Trey Wright, Pedro Lucas in the middle, and Dylan Poteet way up topside. Take a look at those drivers towards the rear of the field. Charles Sanford, Amanda Evans, Matt Haas. Those are some of the drivers that are going to set down the fast laps in the early going, since they are back in the pack. You get all of that draft, you get all of that speed, and it's going to be interesting to see here as well, because there tends to be a point where early on in the race where everybody is all bunched up, that the energy is generated for drivers to be able to set down those pole-setting qualifying laps. As the race wears on, as the tires start to wear down, as drivers start to kind of just settle in, that energy seems to dissipate just the least little bit, and so it makes it more difficult for drivers that try to fall to the back and try and beat the laps that are at the top of the board to try and get that pole position. It makes it a little bit more difficult for them. Trey Wright led that lap, and now here comes another former Daytona 500 winner in Cole Baker. Of course, Toyota Camry firing the first shot this season, with Ryan Butcher going to victory lane in the Clash. He's actually caught in the middle right there, you see, the Gatorade Toyota. With Benny Watson to the inside, and Dylan Poteet still stuck on the top line as Baker, with help from James Qualls. Qualls now going to duck to the inside. Let's see which line's going to win out here at the start-finish line. It's going to be close, and I think it's going to be Qualls edging ahead by about a wheel. So let's keep that all in the back of our heads if we end up having a photo finish here in the Daytona 500 of which line might have the momentum coming back to the checkered flag. Levi McIntyre, a lot of Fords I've noticed here, at least up at the front of the field, and it seemed like when the signups were going on, which are still happening, if you want to formulate a team, you won't necessarily be able to qualify for the Daytona 500, but you'll be able to take part in the following races. If you want to formulate a team and you've got 2 other drivers who are able to form that 3-driver team with you. Let us know on Discord. Let us know on Facebook. Because signups are still open during the course of this season, but that was close between Dylan Young, Benny Watson, Cole Baker through the tri-oval. I said they can hold it 4 wide, but when they were holding it 4 wide, they were actually giving each other room. That didn't look like a whole lot of room being given. There was some paint exchanged, I think, between those machines. But going back to what I was saying, it seemed like when the signups were going on, that Chevrolet was looking like it was going to be the dominant manufacturer on the season. But I'm looking at all the Fords we've got up here right now. Qualls, McIntyre, Young, Osborne, Trey Wright, Phil Parker. Pedro Lucas was up here. Keith Batson was up here. So there's a lot of blue ovals in the field this season as well. As far as the championship is concerned, Ford has won, I believe it was 2 championships, with Chris Dollerton in Season 1 and Jordan Lopez in Season 3. Chevrolet has a championship with Carson Gum now. That, of course, last season. And Toyota had a championship with Ryan Acosta back in Season 2. Dodge, the only manufacturer that did not win a championship, and as you saw in the starting grid, there are no Dodges in the field this season. It's all Mustangs versus Camrys versus Camaros, at least in this point in time. We got a number of Dodges last season. Of course, the most prevalent Dodge team was Bulldog Motorsports, but that team folding up. Tyler Garrett is now in free agency. Zach Rogers and Ryan Brommer now over with Pigeon Racing. We're going to wait until we get to lap 10. We will bring up the unofficial ticker. We're only going to be using that during the course of this race. We will not be using the... Oh, we got a wreck. Hold on. Big wreck. Got a car upside down. That's Carson Gum on his roof. And there are about 12 cars involved back here. Maybe upwards of 15. Charles Sanford, Nick Gunther, Patrick Smith, Jesse Turner, Keith Batson. And this is not good because these are drivers that, if they were up at the top of the speed charts, they would be forfeiting that pole position here today. There's Amanda Evans and Michael Wayne Robinson. I think they were around the vicinity. Tim Walsh, a lot of damage on his 5-hour Energy Camaro. LaPlante looks like he was involved. Jack Mitchell. There is Carson Gum, and there was the race back to the start-finish line as the race leader had already crossed the stripe when the caution waved, so these guys were all actually racing back to the line. James Quall is going to be the leader as we'll set up for the second half of this race, and there is Gunther, there is Turner. What in the world happened here? We were just moments away from taking a look and seeing who had the fastest 2 laps at that point in time around the halfway point. And now we got to kind of go through the ins and outs of what happened with this wreck and figure out if this is anybody that would have been around that pole position. Let's look here around the Carson Gum machine. And, ooh, this was again 4 wide, but this was tight. Look at that. Michael Wayne Robinson literally into Carson Gum's left rear. He hooks LaPlante up into Mitchell, up into Sanford, up into Gunther. Nothing these guys could do. Keith Batson was caught behind this. Jesse Turner. There's Patrick Smith. Boy, Carson Gum up and over. And that car never came back on its wheels. Matt Haas was trapped back behind there. Pedro Lucas was trapped behind there. You can just see them just behind that smoke. Amanda Evans might have gotten through pretty well unscathed. I think she has some damage there, a little bit of visible damage, but certainly nothing to the scale of a lot of these other drivers. Let's take a look at another angle there. I mean, my goodness. Well, I guess if you're going to go to a backup car, better to go to a backup car now. Start at the rear of the field for a dual race, and then get yourself better track position in that dual race, but still. I don't think there were a lot of teams that wanted to have to go to the backup cars here in a qualifying effort. You see that contact, and there was a lane down there for Robinson to run. I'm not sure why he ran Carson Gum up that high, and wow. As soon as the right side wheels came off the ground for Carson Gum, the momentum just carried it over onto his roof. Oh, Amanda Evans did actually get a pretty good hit there into Patrick Smith. And there you see about half the field torn up. There's the other half on the top of your screen heading into turn 1. Still racing back to the caution flag. So here's the thing. If drivers are able to continue that were up there in the pole position or outside the front row speeds, then they would still hold those spots. Those cars can be repaired. They can continue on. But if they are out of this race and they're going to a backup car, they are already forfeiting the pole position. Look at that there with this still shot. Heading into turn 1, Carson Gum sliding on by on his roof. Safety team having to go out there and help turn that car over to evacuate him out of his Chevrolet. That's a tough start to the year for the defending champion of the Duracell Cup Series. As he sits on pit road. His day effectively over. And when we cross the line this time, we will be halfway through this qualifying session. At this point in time, we have 2 drivers that are officially taking their cars behind the wall. Austin LaPlante in the 48 and Nick Gunther in the 55. So they will both be starting at the rear of the field for the NNSCRA duels this Wednesday evening. And as Qualls crosses the line, let's take a look. Again, as mentioned, we are not going to be using this ticker during the course of the season. We'll only use it here so that way we can get an idea of who currently sits at the top of the speed charts. As Carson Gum's coming back out onto the racetrack, and I almost wonder if maybe he's up there towards the top of the speed charts and feels he has to get out there. Let's see. Right now, fastest laps belong to Michael Wayne Robinson with a 43.959 and Carter Friesen with a 43.987. Those 2 drivers currently sit as the front row. Robinson as the pole sitter and Friesen as the outside pole sitter according to the speeds that have been set at this point in time, but we still have, well, we will have a little less than 10 laps to go depending on when the pace car lights decide to go out. And there's still time for somebody there towards the rear of the field to maybe get enough of a draft, enough of a tow, and be able to top those 2 speeds. So the way they're going to line up for this upcoming restart, James Qualls currently on point, Cole Baker in second, Dylan Young is third, Phil Parker fourth, Cody Lamas in fifth, sixth will be Trey Wright, Kyle Matthews in seventh, eighth place for Dylan Pote, Joshua Osborne ninth, and Andrew Lemke completes top 10. Levi McIntyre will be 11th, Carter Friesen in 12th, Benny Watson 13th, Ryan Butcher 14th, Amanda Evans is 15th, 16th, Pedro Lucas, Matt Haas in 17th. Had a couple of drivers come down pit lane on this past lap, including Michael Wayne Robinson, Jack Mitchell, Tim Walsh, Patrick Smith, Jesse Turner, Keith Batson, and Charles Sanford, all to maybe get a little bit more damage repair done. We should see the 1 to green this time. As mentioned, out of the race are the cars of Austin LaPlante and Nick Gunther. Carson Gum returning back to the track is 2 laps down. He will pick up a couple of positions on LaPlante and Gunther, but that's pretty much, I think, all he's going to be able to do, which will subsequently probably pick him up 1 spot in the starting lineup for the duel that he will take part in. Now, bear in mind here as well, a little bit different of a thing than what we've done in the past. In the past, it was whoever qualified on the pole, whoever qualified on the outside of the front row were the subsequent pole sitters for the duels the following couple of days after. That's not the case here. If you qualify on the pole position or the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500, you've got that position to be able to lean on when the green flag waves for the Great American Race. But let's say in the case of Michael Wayne Robinson, if he finishes this race in the 5th position, which would be 3rd place in duel number 1, that's where he's starting. He's not the pole sitter. If James Qualls does not get the fastest lap here, is not the pole sitter for the Daytona 500, but he wins this qualifying race, he is the pole sitter for the first duel at Daytona. So bear that in mind. You get the pole position, but it does not mean that you get the pole position for your duel and for the Daytona 500. You only get the pole for the Daytona 500. Where you finish in this qualifying session is where you will start in your respective starting lineups for the duels. Odd drivers will start in duel number 1, and even drivers in the finishing results will be in duel number 2. So right now, as things stand, with how they run, James Qualls would be the pole sitter for duel number 1, and Cole Baker would be the pole sitter for duel number 2. Of course, after the duels on Wednesday evening, we've got the Great American Race Daytona 500 next Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the season opener, as drivers will look to join the ranks of Carter Friesen, Carson Gum, Cole Baker, and Trey Wright. James Qualls ready for that pace car to turn onto pit lane. It will do so. And let's get back underway with 8 laps to go here in our pole day qualifying event. And we got a lot of drivers fanning out. Baker moves high, Dylan Young moves low, and Phil Parker moves even lower. He's been very aggressive on the starts and restarts, has Phil Parker. Now we'll have to see here as these cars start to get back up to speed and generate a run with the smaller field. Is that going to almost solidify the front row starting spots for Michael Wayne Robinson and Carter Friesen? Or can somebody use this to their advantage to knock them off of the top 2 fastest laps? Qualls will lead that lap as we are 3 wide, 3 rows deep. Trey Wright, Phil Parker, and Dylan Young in the first row. Then Osborne, Lamas, and Poteet in the second row. And then we had Lemke, Matthews, and McIntyre in the third row. But McIntyre now starts to fade towards the back of this lead group, which appears to only be holding about maybe 13 cars. 13, 14 cars. Ryan Butcher, the last of this group. Everybody else got involved in that big wreck through the tri-oval, and they're just trying to now limp it around, get the best starting position possible that they can for this Wednesday's duels. Joshua Osborne. This is the battle for 4th between himself, Trey Wright, and Cole Baker. Trying to get up there with his Joanna Atwood Motorsports teammate, James Qualls. And you got to wonder what kind of strategy comes into play with teammates trying to make sure that they get into the same duel. Trying to make sure that they either both finish in even finishing positions or odd finishing positions. I don't really know if you can strategize like that when you're side by side several rows deep in a super speedway race, but sometimes they are able to do it. As Phil Parker to the inside here of Dylan Young. And look at how this race has taken on an entirely different aspect after we had that big wreck and about half of our field taken out in it. What was 3 wide racing several rows deep has now turned into double file racing for the most part. Like I said, when you have a smaller field, it's so difficult to be able to generate the same kind of energy that you generated with an additional 10, 12 cars in the pack. Ooh, I thought James Qualls made a nice block there on Dylan Young, but Dylan Young able to get enough of a run down the back straightaway. He's going to leave James Qualls up on the top, and Dylan Young appears to be going to the point. Joshua Osborne has no choice but to leave his teammate out to dry and help push Dylan Young to the point. Now Joshua Osborne wants the race lead himself, and he's going to get some help from Andrew Lemke. Lemke going to be making his debut in the Daytona 500 here in the Duracell Cup Series. Joshua Osborne took part in a few races last season as a chartered driver, or as a non-chartered driver, I should say, took part in some chartered races. There's a lot of guys that we're going to be seeing during the course of this season that have not taken part in a Duracell Cup Series race, and you got to wonder how long the adjustment period's going to be for them. Lemke, one of those drivers. As he's trapped in the middle, 3 wide, Carter Friesen. Oh, man, pushing up, and Dylan Young's coming to pit road. Could these drivers not make it on fuel? What is the situation here? Nobody else is coming in. I think this is unscheduled. And boy, did that split the field up. Something, I think, is amiss on the 2 car of Dylan Young, because there's 3 laps to go. There is no way that you would be coming to pit road this late in a qualifying event. Let's see what the draft is like here. Look at Qualls. Look at the run he got down the back straightaway. I'll bet he was going 10 miles per hour faster than his teammate. And here comes Trey Wright. Here comes Andrew Lemke. Gonna have at least 4 cars up in this lead pack. Can this group catch them? Phil Parker, Carter Friesen, Benny Watson. 2 to go. Do we dare look? Shall we take a look and see who's got the speeds right now? It is still Michael Wayne Robinson and Carter Friesen, but with the runs that some of these guys were getting there on that lap, I wonder if somebody might have a shot here in the closing stages. There's Friesen in the 6. Michael Wayne Robinson's got damage, but he's still running. There he is. Not a whole lot of damage visible on that car, though he is off the pace. But if he can keep that car in one piece here and nobody tops him, he's your pole sitter for the Daytona 500 as James Qualls going to see the white flag. 1 lap to go. Trey Wright takes a look to the inside. He's got help from Phil Parker. Qualls has his teammate Osborne up high, wide, and handsome. Who gets the run down the back straightaway? It's fairly even. Maybe the numbers are up on the top. Looks like 6 on the top, 5, 6 on the bottom. Qualls going to edge ahead there down the back straightaway. But can he get the run here out of 3 and 4? Now more numbers have gone to the inside line. Trey Wright and James Qualls, they're going to have a photo finish, I think, coming off this corner. To the line. Qualls up top, Wright down low. James Qualls is going to win the qualifying race here at Daytona. And he will start as the pole sitter for duel number 1. Trey Wright will start as the pole sitter for duel number 2. That is, again, barring any driver possibly knocking Michael Wayne Robinson and Carter Friesen off of the front row. Let's take a look. Let's see. Is Robinson in his first full-time season going to be leading us to green in the Great American Race? No, he will not. Dylan Poteet in the closing stages with a 43.469. Levi McIntyre jumps to second with a 43.563. That's your front row for the Daytona 500. How about that out of nowhere? I told you when they got spread out, the big runs that the second group was going to get in that first group might change the aspect of the front row. And Dylan Poteet, who started on the pole for this qualifying event, is, how ironically, going to be the pole sitter for the 500. Levi McIntyre moving away from the championship Blue Oval Automotive to form his own team. He's going to be on the outside of the front row for the Great American Race. And now for those 2 drivers, the goal is clear, and that is just simply make sure that you keep your car in one piece in the respective duels. So James Qualls and Trey Wright, they will be the pole sitters for the duels on Wednesday night. Duel number 1 going to be Qualls, Osborne, Lemke, Baker, Butcher, Levi McIntyre, Kyle Matthews, Keith Batson, Matt Haas, Patrick Smith, Charles Sanford, Jesse Turner, Carson Gum, and Nick Gunther. And duel number 2 is going to be comprised of Trey Wright, Phil Parker, Benny Watson, Carter Friesen, Dylan Poteet, Cody Lamas, Pedro Lucas, Amanda Evans, Michael Wayne Robinson, Jack Mitchell, Tim Walsh, Dylan Young, and Austin LaPlante. That's going to be your subsequential lineups for the duels. But how about that in the closing stages? Dylan Poteet and Levi McIntyre snipe the front row away from Carter Friesen and Michael Wayne Robinson, and they will be the 2, at least at this point in time, leading us to green for the Daytona 500. Thank you all for tuning in here to this rather unorthodox, but I think just about everything of this season, the way that the teams are formulated, the way the playoff system is, I think everything is practically considered unorthodox, but certainly makes it a lot of fun and makes it very unpredictable, to be sure. Hope you guys enjoyed this qualifying session, though. If you did, be sure to give this video a like if you were watching this post-broadcast. Thank you to everybody that tuned into this live broadcast. Appreciate you all, and hope you join us on Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your NNSCRA duels to set the rest of the field for next Saturday's Great American Race Daytona 500. But until then, I've been Seth Cole. Have a great rest of your evening, folks, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the NNSCRA Sports and Gaming Channel.